I suppose that many of the conclusions given in the first part of the video impacted your life in a positive way, since the work I am presenting here could be fairly the basic initiation for any priest in ancient times. We didn't reach the maturity yet in this channel for touching strictly matters of spirituality. But the solid wisdom that I am sharing will give the base for any person willing to gain the favor of the gods. The hard task of finding out the most ancient of the truths will have its rewards, since they will explain the nature of our peoples better than anything. And many will confess to have fascination for history as an end in itself, especially for the most ancient civilizations, as for example those that were in the continent of Atlantis. But we won't talk about the ordinary nonsense. We are going to talk about historical and concrete facts, avoiding the fantasy details given to the story. We got an scarce but solid amount of sources for giving an honest conclusion about a subject that awakes fascination in everyone. Just the mention of Atlantis in any video is capable of creating a magnet effect. Not because it is a beautiful story, but because it is deep in our memories. I remember that I met an archaeologist in Bolivia who showed me a gold coin with Phoenician characters. He told me that it was founded near archaeological sites in the Lake Titicaca. So for understanding the most ancient civilizations that were in the Atlantic continent, we need to do the Phoenician connection. Phoenicians were in fact the ancestors of the Gothic Sumerian peoples and many other peoples of the Euro-Asiatic continent. Seeing that the Phoenicians were gifted with the skill of navigation, as it is known by many historical sources, how could someone deny absolutely the possibility of the existence of commercial routes between the Mediterranean and Atlantis? Even when we know that they managed to extract copper, gold, and other minerals from remote places, as were the British Isles, bordering the European continental mass from the columns of Hercules till the city of Tyre. So it's not that weird that they could have reached what today constitutes one of the richest countries in matters of minerals, as it is Bolivia. And when we cannot be more perplexed about those conclusions, we find an absolute, quote, casuality, since the boats of the Phoenicians are mysteriously similar to those of the Vikings. As I said in the first part of this video, the only laughable obstacle academia always find at the time of giving the credit to the real authors of history is just the modern demographical factor. The big majority of documentaries we have to tolerate cannot be described in other words as cartoonish, insulting propaganda. At least for those of us who conserve some intellectual respect. Phoenicia was the nomadic and sedentary empire, the ancient civilization that gave birth to ancient civilizations. From the Phoenicians were descended the Sumero and Gothic peoples, the Brits, the Vedic peoples, the Scythi, brown-coated Scythians, and all the related nations that may differ just by the many confusing names given by different peoples in different languages. Between those nations were sacred lineages of kings, in many cases priest warriors, authentic deities that took an incarnated version for leading and teaching. If you see the first part of this video, you will notice who were the Sumerians. And the Goths of Gothic tongue were a younger branch, with prevalence in the zone of Thracia or today's Bulgaria. That is well described by Roman historians, relating how that nation was starved in the zone of Thracia for not being willing to convert to Christianity. Frisians are the same peoples if we compare the Gothic language and the Frisian language. And even they share the same clothing as the Frisian cap. In the Sumerian tablets, there are allusions to peoples and lineages that we may think that are part of the Vedic peoples. Which is no coincidence, seeing that the Brahmans are mentioned in more than one seal. The Kasi or Brahman were a lineage of clarivident priests. The word Brahman is related with our modern word priest or prayer. You can see it by yourself. Priest, prayer, Brahman. They were the caste involved in the creation and execution of incantations or songs of praise. From the word Brahman we got also the name Brits of Britain, who are actually descendants of the Bharats mentioned in the Indian epics that related the histories of the Sumero-Gothic lineage. In my books I found an interesting data for adding into the Sumerian Gothic connection. There is a city called Gudea in Sumeria. Gu is an ancient root shared by the Vedic language, Sumerian and Turkic languages, and of course the successors of those, the European languages. Gu means cow, and cow is in fact a cognate word. Gudea was the dwelling place of the gods. Gods, goods. So the gods were known with that name because they used to be nomadic peoples in possession of goats and cows. The goat was a divine animal, just as the bull. They were a representation of virility and divine wrath. Exactly what one would need for gaining animals and women through battle. The bull is praised not just by the Sumerian gods, but also by the Greeks and Indians. This is not a coincidence, but the reflect of the same peoples inhabiting the Euro-Asiatic continent. As I said in the first video, Thor was the first king of the Dardans. And Thor shared the characteristics of the thunder god Indra. Marduk for the Sumerians and Zeus for the Greeks. Zeus was represented as a bull by the Greeks. Indra is repeatedly called Vrishabha, which means bull in the Vedic language. In Egyptian language, we find also Imra, which is the honest translation of the god Amun-Ra. Also, Im is the first part of the name Indra. The second part of Indra is Dara. Comes from Dardanus or Thor. So you may be asking yourself why there are cuneiform tablets and not Gothic tablets. Well, between the Gothic language and the Sumerian language, there is, I think, a difference of thousands of years. I think Sumerian is more ancient than what academia says. You can trust the science, but it is said that here in Atlantis, I mean in America, they found cuneiform inscriptions. America being the primordial home of our peoples. But going back, There are lots of cognates between Gothic and Sumerian. And you might know that Sumerian is related to Hittite, another language written in cuneiform. And the Hittites were in fact the Scythian peoples. Compare, for example, the German Scythen or the Greek Scythes with the word Hittite, since we know that the K is interchangeable with the H, because both of them are guttural letters. So the Goths, the Hittites, a branch of the Turkic tribes, and the Sumerians were actually related. You might realize that there were orientational mistakes by historians, and then an intentional misdirection by certain peoples, which in opportunistic behavior dedicated themselves to the intensification of those mistakes. And you may be questioning yourself why they want our memories confused. Well, because if you remember who you are, your morals will reach the sky. So, for example, they change the name of the gods because they are afraid of us doing invocations in them. Because naming them awakes our memory and put us close to our ancestors. Thus, I'm tired of seeing symbols that are expressing one sound, and then the translators are transcribing them in a different way. This happens especially with the Egyptian language. The famous god Amun-Ra or Amon-Ra is pronounced Imn-Ra. It is clear the lack of fidelity of the transcriptions. And now we know that Imn-Ra is actually the god Indra or Dingir-Im of the Vedic civilization and the Sumerian tablets. Then we got Jauti, a god that, for whatever reason, they are calling Thoth. Jauti is similar to the Vedic Jautishan, which means light, and it is related with the word day. So Thoth probably was a light god. And we see that it cannot be a mistake. And now, this is the best example that reflects the lack of honesty to the authenticity expressed by the sounds of the symbols. In fact, it says Satan. So I conclude that Satan was the utmost god in Egypt. Just as it happens in Iran today, where peoples of our roots are still praising a deity that is called Shaitan. And I know that it says king, but the king is the representation of God, or sometimes the representation of the sun. That it's in fact the same, because the sun is the major representation of God in this earth. So we got here the root of our word Satan. Remember, in Egyptian, the god is pronounced Satan. Ancient languages didn't put too much emphasis in the pronunciation of the vocals. And this is crucial if you want to do good enchantments, since you have to pronunciate the name of the god with perfection. And this is not all. Then we got the Sanskrit language root Sat, conjugated Satya or Satnam. Sat means literally the truth or the existent. And there was a line or tradition in the Indian civilization called Satnama, related with Satnama, again a Sanskrit word. Nam being an universal nominative formed case present in lots of ancient Asiatic languages, and the source of our word name. So Satnam or Satan, that is the same, means literally existent being or truth being. So in this channel we are going to see that there are lots of inversions in our languages. The sacred word Satan being just one case of them, and by the hand of the so-called religions, which had been propagating dumb stuff for centuries, and now people associate Satan with the enemy or bad spirits. And then we got people that is following churches that are teaching stuff that is far away from what a good relation with Satan might bring to us. Truth, goodness, and bravery for doing the stuff that I am doing, for bringing the light to my people. We will reach a time when this is going to be over, and our kids will be proud of our generation, because we broke up with the curse, because we brought to the surface my lineage of lies, fed by those people that harmed our predecessors. So be positive and focus on the bright future that awaits us. Memory acts as a chain. Because you got to understand something. When you start to remember, for example, a song, at first you don't remember anything. And then your friend starts to sing a part, and suddenly the light comes. And you are chanting all the song with your friend. In the same way, we are awakened today, and it is not going to stop. The last year was full of victories, and the next one is going to be better. So fight for your roots with me, for your memory. And don't forget to propagate this crucial material. See you the next time.